Ian Dale is a middling left-wing commentator in the United Kingdom. He's a legacy holdover from an earlier era, from the 2000s and 2010s, when a certain set of arguments could hold because the situation on the ground was relatively stable. The country back then, back when he was young, was quite homogenous. It was progressive, but coming out of a conservative milieu and a sort of conservative existence. And he is advancing the same arguments that were advanced in the late 90s and early 2000s and expecting them still to have purchase. But the problem is they, of course, don't. So, I mean, back in 2015, he called Nigel Farage a racist because he had Brexit posters where, you know, the huge conga line of illegal men who, for some reason, decided they were just going to march across Europe because for some reason we were going to let them. And Nigel Farage says, do we want this? And Ian Dale's like, well, you're a racist. And he hasn't changed much. Like I said, he's a left-winger, which is why he tried to stand for the Conservative Party in the last election, except in his constituency. There was a video of him talking about how he hated his constituency, so he was just like, okay, I'm going to retire then. I'll step back from that. Don't know why he wants to go into politics though, because really, he's getting everything that he wants. Like, the current establishment and the current status quo is everything he already believes, and so what would he change? What is he getting into politics to fix? And this, I think, has been this archaic, like anachronistic form of politics that Ian Dale continues on to this day has been impervious, apparently, to changes in reality and the way that things are. And for example, when the Conservative government decides they're going to smuggle in God only knows how many Afghans, because they apparently helped us in Afghanistan, Ian Dale now has to try and pretend that Afghans are just all a bunch of liberal Democrats. They're very progressive, normal English people from overseas. They're just, I mean, Afghan, the Cotswolds, what's the difference really, right? And this is where he has found himself coming completely unstuck. This particular clip of his show on LBC the other day has gone pretty viral because it just goes to show you how much of a dinosaur he actually is. And he has the temerity to say that other people's values are rooted in the past. It's like, well, maybe they are, Ian, but so are yours. And Morgoth had a great turn of phrase. He's like, look, the Conservatives, by going full balls to the wall on immigration, have really rubbed the left's nose in immigration and rendered their arguments out of date. And Ian, although he would never admit to being a left-winger, all he comes out with are left-wing arguments, as you'll hear in a minute. Ian is on the same team, whether he wants to admit it or not, as Tony Blair's Labour, where they wanted to rub immigration in the nose of the right. It's like, yep, it's been firmly rubbed, and the Conservatives are so stupid and such unbelievable traitors that they decided they would just go crank open the door, open the gates, bring in as many millions and millions of immigrants as they could, and have no discernment about it whatsoever. And so now, people like Ian Dale and the rest of the left are getting their noses firmly rubbed in this because nobody believes their arguments anymore. Their arguments don't work because they're not true. Ian Dale is reduced to clutching his pearls when a woman called Liz calls into his show and says, look, the Afghans are different to us. They do different things to us. And I don't really want them here. And all Ian can do is go, oh, I just don't want to hear this. So we'll watch this. And this is just, honestly, is everything wrong with the media class in modern Britain.
And if these people come here, they don't turn into Englishmen. They bring their Afghan ways with them. And we're supposed to like it, and we don't. And what did our politicians do about that? Nothing. Tell us to suck it up with what we've got.
And when you say Afghans bring their ways with them and we don't want them, what do you mean by that?
No, we don't. Pardon?
What do you mean by that?
What I mean is that we don't want to live like they do.
So this lady has made a perfectly reasonable point that literally anyone would be able to agree with. British culture, particularly English culture, is not the same as Afghan culture. Afghan culture is tangibly different to British culture in many ways. Now, she's not educated on the subject. She is a member of the public who's just watching the news and seeing what's happening and saying, oh, there's a foreign people there, they do foreign things, they have foreign opinions. I don't necessarily understand why they do these things. I can't give you a sort of alliterative list of all of the differences between British and Afghan culture, but I can tell that they're different, and I think it's actually something I don't like. I don't like some of the things they do. I mean, we can look at some of the differences if we like. The fact that they just happen to be insanely criminal, right? Like the illegal migrants in particular. I mean, there's this one. This is just one example, of course, but like 90 criminal charges against 41 migrants living in just one taxpayer-funded hotel in London. That is mental, right? But let's talk about, like, so that generally they've got a much higher level of criminality because their view of law is completely different to us. Because I mean, like, you know, we could talk about how they're a much more tribal culture, and so they're clannish, and so they have hierarchies of clans, and they have loyalties to one another based on various relations they have, and all these sort of like deep sociological questions that are just so profoundly different to the way that the English have been living for about 800 years, if not longer, right? In the much more narrow view of a family being an immediate nuclear family, and the much more individualist culture. I mean, the fact that you can dispossess and disinherit your children in England is completely radically different to what happens in the rest of the world, Afghanistan included, right? So like these are deep-seated cultural differences. But then you've got the sort of strange outgrowths. Now, in Afghanistan in particular, this whole Bakabazi thing, well, that's pretty mental and pretty disgusting. And it's fairly widespread, apparently, and common thing. And what's weird is that it's the Taliban who decided to make it carry the death penalty. So for anyone who doesn't know, I mean, as Wikipedia tells us, men exploit and enslave adolescent boys, making them cross-dress in female attire for entertainment and or sexual abuse. Not very British, pretty horrific. We don't want this here, and weirdly, the migrants are doing nothing to integrate, right? They're doing nothing to become like us. As Liz points out, they're not just going to become Englishmen. And so we don't really want these people just wandering around, right? Especially as, remember, it's the Taliban that banned this. We were the ones supporting the side who do this because they were fighting for the freedom to rape and enslave young boys. And it's like, okay, I think I'm not saying the Taliban are good guys, right? But I'm not really comfortable being on the side that are like, yes, we're pro-democracy as long as we have the freedom to enslave and rape young boys. I'm actually not in favour of those. Like, the enemy of my enemy is not necessarily my friend. And I can't help but feel that these Afghans who are doing this, and there are so many reports of like the British forces and American forces just being told, you just have to ignore it. You just have to ignore it. And it's like, okay, I can't stand that, frankly. And I wouldn't want to be a part of that. But then we've got the issue that they do seem to have different sexual morality to us, right? So, for example, I mean, just as a quick note, foreigners are nearly a quarter of the sex crimes in Britain as of this year, right? I think this is data from 2023, right? But so huge amount, huge proportion of sex crimes are committed by foreigners, and the Afghans just happen to be at the top of this leaderboard, right? So rates based on convictions per 10,000 of the population put Afghans with the top rate of 59 per 10,000, 22.3 times that of Britain's. And Ian Dale's line of questioning would imply that there is simply no difference. I mean, look at violence. Look at violence alone, 102 compared to the UK 16. Sexual assaults, 59 to 6. Theft. I mean, God, there are loads of other people who are way more steely than the Afghans. But like, you have to admit that they have different cultures and they have different value sets that inform the decisions that they make. And so it's like, okay, well, fair enough. Like, you know, these people are definitely different. And Ian Dale has a real problem admitting this. He just can't admit this. And this woman is therefore right? She's right. It's a different culture. They have a different set of values. And they don't just abandon those values when they arrive on our magic soil. It turns out, as enchanted as it is, it only works for us, right? It doesn't work for them. And they stay the same. And so Ian has nothing to say to this, really.
Well, how do you think they live? How do you know how they live?
See, now, how do you know how they live? What, we're going to appeal to her ignorance? She's not an expert. You know she's not an expert. But we can easily find this information. Like, this isn't a secret. It's not a secret that the British force and the American forces used to have to, like, play clan against clan in Afghanistan. Anyone who's read anything about the Afghan invasion and the current occupation subsequently after it knows about this. And the thing is, I'm sure Ian Dale knows about this. But the thing is, he's like, right, okay, I think I'm dealing with someone who's got less knowledge on the subject than me. I'm going to become a disingenuous bitch and sit there and basically be like, yeah, but you can't give me an enunciated list of all of the individual differences between British and Afghan culture, and therefore you can't possibly be right, even though he knows that they are right. He knows that the Afghans are just not like us when it comes to, I don't know, their sexual morality, their propensity to violence, just random street violence. The things that they do and have cultural traditions of. They're not like us, Ian, but you are going to be disingenuous to this old dear who's worried about her grandchildren, right? That's what Liz's concern is the future of the country that we're leaving. And it's like, oh, brilliant. So this is the old media class running into the reality of this having been ground in everyone's faces, and where can he go from here?
Well, I've seen enough, haven't I? It's all on the television. Women subjected to imprisonment virtually, girls.
That's why they're coming here, to get away from that.
Right. That's why all of the men are coming here, is it? That's why the Channel migrants are 90% men, is it? Like, and the thing is as well, again, what's he assuming here? Oh, well, they're all just liberal Democrats. What are you talking about? They're pro-individual rights. They're pro-feminism, bro. It's like, no, you don't know that yet, right? You don't know that. And there's no particular reason to think that either, especially given their rates of sexual assault. Actually, it seems like we were kind of encouraging an element in society that wanted the freedom to do terrible things. And I'm just not sure that this was a good idea. I'm just not sure that I agree with these people, frankly. Anyway, sorry, Ian, we were talking about the 200,000 Liberal Democrat voting Afghan refugees. Carry on.
Well, why don't they sort their own country out? Why do they want
the
us
Taliban
to help
are in
them and then
charge.
turn on us?
Because the Taliban are in charge, that's why.
So that's an interesting. Why don't they sort their own country out? Well, yeah, that's a great question, actually. Why don't they sort their own country out? Because, I mean, if I recall correctly, Kabul had something like 100,000 heroin addicts just laying on the streets. And one of the first things the Taliban did when they got into power is just rounded them all up and put them into rehab. The Taliban, they came in, they made Baqabaz illegal, and then they started rounding up drug addicts and putting them into rehab. And the thing is, look at the way that it's framed by the BBC here, right? So Afghanistan is the drug addiction capital of the world. Well, how did that happen? We'd been occupying it for 20 plus years. We made it the drug addiction capital of the world. This wasn't something that was there before. This is something that we did after we ousted the Taliban, right? And so you've got this one guy under the Pul East Sukta Bridge. Hundreds of men are squatting under there. The stench under the bridge is overwhelming, with dogs rummaging through piles of litter looking for scraps of food. Overhead, traffic flows. Blah, blah, blah. I would go there with my friends and take some drugs. I didn't fear death, says Omar. It's like, sorry, why are we facilitating this? The freedom to be a disgusting heroin addict who squats under a bridge amongst dead bodies, incidentally, right? The men who called these places home were mostly forgotten, despite the previous government's policy of rounding up addicts and placing them in centres. Right, so the Western-backed government didn't fix this problem, right? The Western-backed government basically just forgot about them and were like, yeah, not our problem. We're too busy with our dancing boys, actually. But when the Taliban took control of the country, they launched a more aggressive campaign to remove them from the streets. But that's good. Don't frame that as if that's bad. Like, again, I don't support the Taliban, But this is objectively the correct thing to do in this situation, right? They used these pipes to whip and beat us. I broke my finger because I didn't want to leave the bridge and I resisted. Still, they forced us out. Yeah, okay, great. Omar was shoved onto a bus alongside with dozens of others, right? And they had to take out loads of bodies and various other addicts who have died from overdoses. Yeah, okay, let's do something about that. And so they were taken to a rehabilitation hospital to undergo 45 days of an intense program before being released. But there is no certainty that these patients will not relapse. Well, where is their certainty? Do we have certainty over here that the patients over here don't relapse? Of course we don't. You know, we're applying to the Taliban a standard that we could never live up to ourselves because we just don't like the Taliban. But the thing is, you can complain, but this was the right thing to do, actually. And so someone's cleaning up Afghanistan, and it's weird that we left it in such a state. And yeah, I mean, the woman can be like, yeah, I don't like what they do to women. Yeah, no, I don't either, but, you know, foreign parts, foreign ways. Anyway.
Because the Taliban are in charge.
Sorry to keep pausing this so quickly. But again, just another, why are the Taliban in charge, Ian, right? Because the Afghan forces broke and ran like fucking cowards, right? They were no good as soldiers. Even with all our backing, they were no good. And they didn't have the courage of their convictions. And as soon as we left, they were like, okay, well, that's the fight's over. Same in Syria, man. Like, these forces are just not reliable soldiers, right? And so the Taliban are just like, okay, we're going to take over and stop all the poppies. Stop planting poppies. We're gonna stop you from raping young boys. We're gonna clean up all the drug addicts. And the thing is, in the West, we're just like, well, this is going to collapse your economy, bro. It's like, oh, I don't think they care. I think they're content to live as the Prophet Muhammad did back in the 7th century. Anyway, sorry, I'll stop interrupting quite so much.
Well, then they'll have to do something about it. If we had rotten governments here, which we have had from time to time, we have a democratic vote on it. If they don't, you can't force these people to do what they don't want to do, and it's nothing to do with that.
You're talking as if these people are coming over here and they're part of the Taliban themselves. The whole point of them coming here is that they were helping us fight against the Taliban.
The thing is, Ian, when you poll these people on their opinions, you will find their opinions are not actually that different to the Taliban. It's going to be on certain issues, they'll have different opinions. But if you think that they're like, oh yeah, well, women need to be respected, you might find that they don't actually agree with that. They actually might just be, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but corrupt tribal chieftains who are just interested in funneling Western money to their own tribes so they could indulge their vices and so they could enrich their friends and families, right? That's really what I think what they were doing. They weren't like, you know what, liberal principles. God, if only we could make Afghanistan a liberal democracy, then everything would be right in the world. They weren't thinking that, Ian. And I don't know why you are pretending like we're supposed to believe that that's the case. Obviously you weren't thinking that.
Oh, right. So that in the future generations, our grandchildren and great-grandchildren are going to be a minority in their own country because your generation wants to flood the country with people that are totally unassimilable to our way of life.
You're a complete dinosaur, I'm afraid.
Right. Well, no, she's right, actually. She's completely right. And we know that that's just going to be the case because of the numbers. If we don't do something to remove millions of foreigners from the country, and if we continue to import millions of foreigners from overseas, we will become a minority in our own country. And so Ian saying, oh, well, you're a dinosaur. No, Ian, you're the one who's out of date here, right? This lady is actually on the cutting edge of what modern British political understanding is informed by. She is correct. You can't even deny it, frankly. You're not even denying her claim because it's so evidently true. And actually, yes, it would be deeply irresponsible to leave our grandchildren with this problem, so we should deal with it now, whilst we still have the capacity to deal with it, because otherwise we're going to be leaving them with hell. The future that we are promising our grandchildren is something that they will never forgive us for, and righteously so. I wouldn't forgive my grandparents if they'd left me the country we are going to give them, and there's no reason they should forgive us. And for you, all you can do is clutch your pearls and go, oh, you're so backwards in your thinking. You don't even think Afghanistanis are exactly the same as British people. You seem to think that they're just totally different or something, which is preposterous. It's impossible. Obviously, Englishmen come from Afghanistan too, which is obviously nonsense, isn't it, Ian?
I mean, it's absolutely disgusting to say, oh, well, these people bring their ways here, and yet you can't actually articulate what they are. I don't want to...
Right, so they do bring their ways here. We all know that they bring their ways here. But it's disgusting that she has said that they do this, that we all know this happens and that we all know it's agreed, but it's disgusting that she can't articulate it. Well, I can articulate it, and is it still disgusting when I say it, or is it fine now because I can articulate the point? What Ian is judging her here on is not the opinion on whether the Afghans are different. It's her level of education. But Ian, you are operating a call-in show where the public get to ring in. You can't expect them to be experts. And so condemning her for not being an expert and yet still being right is very slimy indeed, isn't it?